All right, welcome to the third video interview for CloutTrends. We have Andrew, one of the great builder makers on BitClout. We have Andrew here to talk about some of his clout projects, but maybe Andrew, let's start first with how you got started on BitClout and what drew you to BitClout and why you're on here.
I found out about BitClout through social media, and I generally just started having interest in it because I joined it a lot of the alternative social networks, and that's pretty much it.
Great. And what was your first project on BitClout?
So my first project, I believe, was FilmClout.
And tell us a little bit about that. What was the motivation for FilmClout and what do your
So
users do on there?
FilmClout is trying to crowdsource indie films through like the production of it, creating and minting film badges and things like that. It's still live. The website's still live, and it's still actively being promoted, just not as much. And the main thing was I found it hard in terms of indie film creators who need to get like an agent or something to like get a mass attention towards like their film concept. And usually the cost of an agent is like a whole lot of money. So I thought maybe an alternative to that could be something like FilmCloud. And FilmCloud is actually based off of an old concept I did off of crowdsourcing indie films, which is called block films, and that was done through like Bitcoin and smart contracts. And before that, I had a similar concept called Filmvestor, which was just a crowdsourced indie films platform without the whole blockchain aspect to it. So I've been doing this concept sort of for a while.
Yeah, so it sounds like you brought over some of the ideas you had before BitClout. Did you see BitClout as just being the right platform to continue these projects? What about BitClout makes it right for some of these projects that you had going before BitClout?
I mean, I just wanted to create on a new platform. To be quite honest with you, BitClout still has a lot of room to grow in terms of like meeting my expectations and a lot of developers' expectations. Like their claim in terms of like being fully open source and decentralized have not been met up until this point. So
Yeah, I think we all believe there's a lot of progress that needs to be made, but the builders are and makers are continuing to build here, so that's some testament to the opportunity. Let's talk about some other projects you have going on, and maybe even some of the most recent projects. What's where are you spending most of your time now in terms of BitClout projects?
okay, I'll just list all my projects really quick. So you could see the projects I have at like peer-social.com. So I have Film Clout, Cloud Pool, Cloud Lock, Cloud Contracts, Space Clout, Cloud Cloudathon, Cloud World, Bit Badges, which I acquired, Cloud Install, Cloud List, Cloud Desktop, and then I have like four different open source projects, including like Awesome Cloud, BitClout proposals, FBC, and then an anti-dumping mechanism for BitClout creators. Some of those projects are not exclusively like BitClout based or exclusive to BitClout. Like for example, Cloud Pool, Bitbadges, and Cloud Contracts is gonna be interplanetary, so it's gonna be cross-chain on multiple platforms. And if BitClout somehow disappears, those platforms would still be live. And then some projects are more towards like being BitClout based than others, but those are the projects that I'm sort of spending lots of times on is the cross-chain ones.
Yeah, and let's talk about the one you mentioned that you acquired, Bit Badges. What was interesting enough about that project that you thought you wanted to take that over? What was the
Well,
upside?
I sort of took it over, but me and Trevor are basically like we split our time on it 50-50, so he's still like actively involved. Acquired is like more of the legal term for it, but the thing that is interesting about BitBazes is I thought the concept was interesting in itself, and I thought I could also use BitBazes for other projects like FilmCloud in terms of minting like badges for films and film passes and stuff like that, or movie passes. And I know other stuff exists like that in sort of the blockchain market for a while, but I thought I could use Bitbats as a sort of like a boiler template for like creating a new sort of standard in terms of like an alternative to ERC 721 for NFTs. So I thought that was interesting. Like my main vision wasn't for it to just be like exclusively like some BitClout thing, but more like a boilerplate template for like everything we wanted to do.
Got it. And let's talk about some of the projects that have Clout in their name, but could also be cross-chain. One of those might be Clout Contracts. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that project and if that's BitClout exclusive or you have bigger plans for that.
Cloud contracts is not BitCloud exclusive. In fact, the number of people interested in cloud contracts from other social networks, like Steemit and Minds.com, already greatly exceeds like the amount of users on BitClout that are interested in integrating with it. So that's just a testament in terms of it being sort of cross-chain and more decentralized. But in terms of cloud contracts, what it is you basically are able to expand like your social media profile or your quote unquote decentralized social media profile. We'll use the term decentralized loosely in terms of like BitClout, but you're able to expand your profile in terms of like actually making smart contracts and actually being part of an entirely new network. The thing about cloud contracts, as opposed to some other projects, is it's its own roll-up layer on top of Ethereum and on top of other blockchains as well. It's sort of an optimistic roll-up. It's kind of it's based off like the Orb Hub protocol so far, and its transaction speed aims to be eventually faster than Visa, and it eventually aims to be really cheap in terms of like cross-chain transfers and stuff like that. So in terms of like the actual deployment that already went into cloud contracts, we already created a block explorer. I've done 120 smart contracts that had to be deployed across like 4 chains and a whole bunch of things like that. People don't understand though. In terms of like if you wanted to make a bridge between like BitClout and Ethereum assets like CloutBridge is doing, that in itself is way easier to do and would only take a few hours, but it would require you like sending clout to like some unknown middleman. With cloud contracts, it's like fully decentralized and you're able to like own your assets, and the only thing that you're doing is like you're building on top of a roll up layer that's already on a network. So you're not like sending assets to some middleman or anything like that. And I feel like the fact that it's tied to social networks in the way that it is if a bunch of BitClout users created like smart contracts on top of the cloud contracts network, and then BitClout went like MIA or missing or whatever, or like offline, that network could still be pegged on the blockchain, and someone could easily build like a BitClout clone with all those user smart contracts. And it doesn't rely on BitClout to be live per se, and it doesn't rely on Minds.com or all the other social networks to be live.
Got it. And that this project alone sounds very promising and interesting. What makes you want to continue with other projects? I sort of ask this question to all builders or makers who have many projects going on at once. If cloud contracts is such a big opportunity, why even allocate time to these other projects?
Well, Bitbadges is going to be important as well. There's a lot of plans with Bitbadges, as well as even a sidechain integration with cloud contracts. And that's why I'm allocating time towards Bitbadges. I keep saying times plural. I don't know why, but that's why I keep allocating time towards Bitbadges, because it's almost as important. In terms of my other projects, I don't allocate as much time towards them as much as I do towards Bitbadges and cloud contracts, is just because the level of importance. So it's all about effective time management and still getting stuff done, but setting priority over one task over the other pretty much.
Great. And There, you mentioned a project that was meant to be like an anti-dumping mechanism for creators. Was that their own coins you were mentioning? Is that what that's for?
Yeah, so basically it's like creator puts $1,000 into like minting new project coins. They increase their FR to 50% for a 24-hour period. It's basically like a whole bunch of steps. So I wrote like a whole bunch of steps, and like my reasoning for those steps, like mathematically in regards to like avoiding avoiding an OpenFR project dump, if that makes sense. Because I experienced that a lot, where there were like a bunch of anonymous accounts that put like tons of money into my projects and then like dumped it immediately. And that was unfortunate because at the beginning, when I was like a BitClout newbie, I would immediately like reinvest FR into my projects. So I would get dumped to oblivion. And those projects like Cloudpool and stuff like that, I worked really hard on it. So I sort of made that mechanism for future projects and future endeavors, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yes. So it's not stopping creators from dumping their own coin or their own project coins. It's for these accounts that come in early and then exit really quickly.
Yeah,
Is
pretty
there
much.
like what's the time frame on that? That sort of prevents that from happening. Is it within the first month, 2 months, 3 months?
Usually in terms of the steps, it's usually like a 4 to 5 day process, but they have steps in regards to how much they should mint, when to distribute FR, when to open, when to set FR to like 0%. So it's more like it's more like it's very hard at that point to like dump. I mean, you could still rug pull at that point, but the damage would be far less severe as opposed to just opening FR right away.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting topic. I've dug into a lot with varying FRs over time and kind of effectively flattening or steepening the bonding curve. What is this project or process called?
So I just called it an anti-dumping mechanism. It's open source on GitHub. So it's just like a small like one-page document saying like a bunch of steps you could do. It's actually there's no coin tied to it or anything like that. So I just sort of wanted to create sort of like a standard for something that creators could like look into per
Great.
se, but the process of like dumping a coin is just called like dumping or rug pulling and things like that. And by the way, none of this is investment advice. BitClout is strictly supposed to be like looked at as technological and things like that. I don't recommend like people putting their own money into BitClout or doing things like that. I'm just saying like in terms of like one of my documents, that's something I wrote.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you putting that together. I'll definitely have to take a look. It's something, again, that I spend a lot of time on, and I think the other clouders will find value in. I'll make sure to link to all these
Yes,
various things we've discussed.
everything I talk about is on my website, the peer-social.com website. So you could look into like all the stuff there.
Great. And going into the final questions here, what is something that you're wanting to have happen on BitClout? I know you mentioned the more of an effort to decentralize. What are maybe some other things that would help with that effort or help you as a builder developer on top of BitClout?
Well, right now, I think most of the architecture for BitClout redirects towards the NZX servers that they have, including their nodes, and that's no different. That's no difference than basically running like an overglorified API. Even with the Postgres databases that they've done, it's still redirecting towards like a centralized data point. I want the effort to have an open source database schema that's tailored towards Byzantine tolerance and things like that. Where if the main BitClout node goes down and their whole NZX servers goes down, all those other nodes that are pulling data and stuff don't go down with it. Like they could basically be like, we're shutting down our servers, and then there are 9,000 or 8,000 other people that are hosting their nodes, and BitClout would be live and no one would notice it. Right now, that doesn't fully exist yet.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's just a function of being really early, also probably a function of needing more capital to be, deployed
I
towards
mean,
those efforts.
I wouldn't say they need more capital because I'm doing that with no funding. Bitcoin's core developers done that with no funding. So it's not really a capital thing. What worries me is they're releasing lots of technologies that's towards the angle of centralization. They're doing KYC through a third party platform. KYC is very centralized. It's anti decentralization in terms of like everyone's private data is sort of verified towards like this one single centralized repository. So in terms of like what goes on the global feed and a bunch of other stuff, who gets blue check marks, all that, everything in terms of what BitClout is screams centralized. At least other social networks like Minds.com, they're based off of more open architecture. Minds.com has an ERC20 asset, and it also has all their databases and schemas live on GitLab, a whole bunch of repositories. Someone could easily connect to that smart contract and run the database schemas if their hosting went live, and Minds.com would still be live. BitClout doesn't have anything in terms of like being fully open and decentralized where they could easily do that right now, and that's problematic. And what's problematic is all the services that they're using are centralized and more towards like they're a media or social media company right now that receive VC funding rather than an open source and fully decentralized blockchain.
Yeah, and I mean, how optimistic are you about this changing over time? Because I know Diamond Hands has said the goal is full decentralization with everything essentially being open. Is that something you've bought into or believe in, and just think it's coming down the road?
Well, it's not even that. It's just don't lie. Just don't lie about being fully open source or decentralized if you're not on that path yet. Like you can't make an announcement saying something and then the architecture is different than what you are saying. Is it, the fact that the fact that they done things the way that they done, they're in control of like which process gets integrated in terms of like BitClout's core code base. The whole diamonds update that they did is like they initiated that, like, okay, now people will just receive cloud. So they're in control basically over full development, even in terms of like how they feel about cloud improvement proposals. So if all your actions say you're centralized, if all the technologies are not decentralized, then don't claim 2 or 3 months ago to be like fully open source and decentralized. Like if you do that in the future, that's great, but don't claim it early.
Yeah, well, to be fair, on the CIP for the diamonds, there was a period of comment and discussion. There just wasn't many clouders that were active in that, so it proceeded as planned. But they did go through the process, normal CIP process on that one. So it was really the community members that didn't give any feedback contrary to that decision.
Even then, if there's no feedback, I'm saying even if there's like no feedback, the fact that you're just pushing a code, pushing some sort of code change right away is like a bit problematic. But that's the least of my concerns. The biggest of my concerns is like how the server side architecture is set up, and they didn't talk about Byzantine tolerance or shared and grid computing networks and stuff like that, or proof of computation or verifiable computing. Like none of the things that are related to like decentralization in terms of like distributed computing architecture is in their white paper. So it's more towards price and deflation and stuff like that, but none of the actual things that's related to the core
Yeah,
is
and
there.
I really love this take, and I think, I thought it would be an interesting conversation. That's why I had you on. Maybe a good follow-up question on that is, with these challenges that exist on BitClout, why continue to build, your projects on top of BitClout versus another network? What is that one like critical value that you're still getting from BitClout?
I mean, I'm sort of hopeful. So there's a reason why cloud contracts and stuff like that, like some of my later projects compared to some of my earlier projects, there's a reason why they have backup plans in terms of like if BitClout goes offline, because they're not really BitClout based. They just maybe have the word cloud on it in terms of like the social aspect of it. But I thought sort of further ahead. Also, there's a hope that maybe one day they'll be fully decentralized. If by the way, if Diamond Hands wants to reach out to me and wants to let me wants to sort of agree with me on terms of like how to update the architecture, I could propose ways that they could be Byzantine tolerant or fully decentralized in terms of like a grid computing and parallel computing network. So if they want to reach out, I could probably update their code base in terms of making it fully decentralized. But right now, I don't fully see that. So
Well, we'll definitely tag Diamond Hands when we post this video and see if he wants to reach out. I guess a final question is, what's next? We know cloud contracts is a big thing for you, Bit Badges, because it's going to continue. Anything else you want to share with people who might be listening about what's next for your projects?
Um, well, I'll play it by ear. What's next is mainly just to keep developing. I want to start partnering or integrating with some big blockchain networks and just go from there. So,
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on, Andrew. I really appreciate it, and hope we'll talk again to get an update. I'll be following your projects, and it looks like I have some more reading to do from your website.
yep. Thanks. Bye.